The Jaguar XJ220 is a two-seater supercar produced by British luxury car manufacturer Jaguar from 1992 until 1994, in collaboration with the specialist automotive and race engineering company Tom Walkinshaw Racing. The XJ220 held the record for the fastest production car throughout 1992 after recording a top speed of 213 mph, before being superseded by the McLaren F1 in 1993 when it recorded a top speed of 231 mph. The Jaguar held the Nürburgring production car lap record between 1992 and 2000 with a time of 7:46.36. The XJ220 was developed from a V12-engined four-wheel drive concept car designed by an informal group of Jaguar employees working in their spare time. The group wished to create a modern version of the successful Jaguar 24 Hours of Le Mans racing cars of the 1950s and 60s that could be entered into FIA Group B competitions. The XJ220 made use of engineering work undertaken for Jaguar's then current racing car family as well as the engineering experience gained from the MG Metro 6R4 rally car, produced by former Jaguar sister company Austin Rover Group. The initial XJ220 concept car was unveiled to the public at the 1988 British International Motor Show, held in Birmingham, England. Its positive reception prompted Jaguar to put the car into production. Some 1,500 deposits of £50,000 each were taken, and deliveries were planned for 1992. Engineering requirements resulted in significant changes to the specification of the XJ220. Most notably replacement of the Jaguar V12 engine by a turbocharged V6 engine. The changes to the specification and a collapse in the price of collectible cars brought about by the early 1990s recession resulted in many buyers choosing not to exercise their purchase options. A total of just 275 cars were produced by the time production ended, each with a retail price of £470,000 in 1992. Conception: Jaguar were approached by racing team owner Tom Walkinshaw and encouraged to enter the Jaguar XJS into the 1981 European Touring Car Championship. They succeeded in winning the competition in 1984. Jaguar had started to provide factory support to racing team Group 44 Racing, who were using the Jaguar-engined XJR5 in the IMSA GT Championship, supplying V12 engines from 1983 onwards and supporting a Le Mans entry in 1984. Tom Walkinshaw and Jaguar agreed to entering the FIA Group C World Sports Car Championship and developed the XJR6, which was powered by the Jaguar V12 engine. The car was launched during the 1985 season. TWR took over the IMSA GT Championship operation in 1988 and one Model Euro Jaguar XJR9AA Euro was launched to compete in both series. The XJR9, which retained the Jaguar V12 engine, went on to win the 1988 24 Hours of Le Mans and World Sports Car Championship in the same year. The poor fuel consumption of the Jaguar V12 combined with new rules restricting refueling during races forced the replacement of the V12 engine in the XJR9 successors, the XJR10 and XJR11. The British Leyland 564V engine, designed for the MG Metro 6R4 had recently been made redundant thanks to the Group B rally ban in 1987, and the design rights were for sale. The compact, lightweight and fuel-efficient nature of the small displacement, turbocharged engine was investigated by TWR, who considered it ideal for the XJR10 and purchased the design rights from Austin Rover Group. Jaguar and their director of engineering, Jim Randall, felt these racing cars were too far removed from the product available to the general public, especially with the rule changes that mandated the replacement of the Jaguar V12 engine in the forthcoming XJR10 and XJR11 racing cars. Therefore a project was initiated to design and build a car capable of winning Le Mans in-house, just as the Jaguar C-Type and D-Type had done. The groundwork for the project was undertaken by Randall over Christmas 1987, when he produced a 1/4 scale cardboard model of a potential Group B racing car. The cardboard model was taken into the Jaguar styling studio and two mock-ups were produced. One was said to be reminiscent of the Porsche 956, The other took elements of the then-current Jaguar XJ41 project and Malcolm Sayers' work on the stillborn Jaguar XJ13 racing car. The second design, by Keith Helfert, was chosen as it was more obviously Jaguar in its look. The project still had no official support, leaving Randall no option but to put together a team of volunteers to work evenings and weekends in their own time. The team came to be known as the Saturday Club, and consisted of 12 volunteers. To justify the resources consumed by the project, the XJ220 needed to provide meaningful data to the engineers on handling, aerodynamics particularly at high speeds and aluminium structures. These requirements, together with FIA racing regulations and various government regulations governing car design and safety, influenced the overall design and engineering direction of the car. Concept car. The FIA Group B regulations steered the concept towards a mid-engine, four-wheel drive layout, with a Jaguar V12 engine as the power source. The concept car was designed and built at very little cost to Jaguar, as Randall called in favors from component suppliers and engineering companies he and Jaguar had worked with in the past. In return he offered public recognition for their assistance and dangled the possibility of future contracts from Jaguar. The name XJ220 was chosen as a continuation of the naming of the Jaguar XK120, which referred to the top speed of the model in miles per hour. The concept car had a targeted top speed of 220 mph, so became the XJ220. The XK120, like the XJ220, was an aluminium-bodied sports car, and when launched was the fastest production car in the world. Engine and transmission. Jaguar and engine designer Walter Hassan had previously created a 48-valve variant of their V12 engine specifically for motorsport use. It featured a double overhead camshaft layout with 4 valves per cylinder, compared with the single overhead camshaft and 2 valves per cylinder of the production engine, which was used in the Jaguar XJ and Jaguar XJS models at the time. TWR and Cosworth had manufactured a number of these racing V12 engines during the 1980s, and they had been raced competitively, with a 7-liter version of this engine featuring in the Le Mans winning Silk Jaguar XJR9. 5 of these engines still existed, all of which were fitted with dry sump lubrication. These engines were chosen and considered to be especially useful as the dry sump would lower the vehicle's center of gravity. The displacement of the V12 was set at 6.2 liters for the XJ220. The engine fitted to the XJ220 concept had titanium connecting rods. Jaguar had little experience with four-wheel drive systems at the time, having previously only produced rear-wheel drive cars. Randall approached Tony Rolt's company, FF Developments, to design the transmission and four-wheel drive system for the XJ220, with Rolt's son Stuart running the project. Tony Rolt was the technical director of Ferguson Research, where he was heavily involved in the design of the four-wheel drive system used in the Jensen FF, the first sports car to be fitted with such a transmission. Tony Rolt also had a long involvement with Jaguar, winning the 1953 24 Hours of Le Mans with the Factory Works team driving the Jaguar C-Type. The mid-engine complicated the design of the four-wheel drive system, and an innovative solution was needed to get drive from the rear of the engine to the front wheels. The chosen design took the front-wheel drive from the central differential on the rear transaxle and sent it through the V in the center of the engine using a quill drive, before joining an inverted differential. The clutch was a twin-plate unit designed by AP Racing. Bodywork and interior. The design brief for the exterior restricted the use of aerodynamic aids, and aimed for a stylish yet functional body similar to the Jaguar D-Type. Drag and lift were limited at the envisioned ground clearance for road use, but the design allowed for additional downforce when the car was set up for racing. The body produced around 3,000 lb of downforce at 200 mph. The design was also intended to have a variable rear wing that folded into the bodywork at lower speeds. Aerodynamic work was undertaken at the Motor Industry Research Association wind tunnel using a 1/4 scale model, as the project was unable to budget for a full-scale mock-up. The bodywork for the concept car displayed in 1988 was hand-built from aluminium by Park Sheet Metal, a specialist automotive engineering company that manufactures concept cars and low-volume, niche models for various manufacturers, including Bentley. QCR Coatings undertook final painting of the body shell in silver. The concept also featured electrically operated scissor doors and a transparent engine cover to show off the V12 engine. The concept car had a Connolly leather-trimmed interior produced by Callow and Maddox, and was fitted with front and rear heated windscreens, electric windows, air conditioning, heated electrically adjustable seats with an Alpine electronic CD player. The dashboard was supplied by Veglia. Chassis. The chassis was manufactured from aluminium using Alcan's bonded aluminium structure vehicle technology, and had a wheelbase of 2845 ohm. The design for the chassis featured rear-wheel steering and packaged the fuel tank behind the center bulkhead. Suspension design largely focused on road use, but a good compromise for racing use was achieved and the suspension height was adjustable. The concept car was fitted with a 4-channel anti-lock braking system. The concept car was larger than the production model at 5,140 ohm in length and 2,000 ohm wide. It weighed 1,560 kg. Launch. The concept car was completed in the early hours of October 18, 1988, the day it was due to be unveiled at the British International Motor Show, being held at the National Exhibition Centre, Birmingham. The vehicle was completed at 3 Greenwich Mean Time, moved to Jaguar's stand at 6 Greenwich Mean Time and unveiled at 11 Greenwich Mean Time. Jaguar's marketing department had allocated space on their stand at the motor show for the XJ220, but had not seen the vehicle until its arrival. Jaguar chairman John Egan and Roger Putnam, who was in charge of Jaguar's racing activities, were shown the vehicle the week before the motor show and signed off on the concept, allowing its unveiling. The car received an overwhelmingly positive reception by public and press, and a number of wealthy Jaguar enthusiasts handed over blank checks to secure a purchase option should the XJ220 concept go into production. Ferrari displayed their F40 model at the same event. An estimated 90,000 additional visitors came to see the Jaguar and Ferrari cars. The XJ220 was not initially intended to be a production car, but, following the reception of the concept and financial interest from serious buyers, a feasibility study was carried out by teams from TWR and Jaguar. Its conclusion was that such a car would be technically feasible, and that it would be financially viable. The announcement of a limited production run of 220 to 350 cars came on December 20, 1989. The list price on January 1, 1990 was £290,000 exclusive of value-added tax, options and delivery charges, but by 1992 that had increased considerably owing to indexation of contracts. The offer was 4 times oversubscribed, and deposits of £50,000 exclusive of value-added tax were taken from around 1,400 customers. First deliveries were planned for mid-1992. Production version. Jaguar were unable to develop the XJ220 in-house as their engineering resources were committed to working on the Jaguar XJ and Jaguar XJS models. The re-engineered and facelifted XJS was launched in May 1991. Jaguar and TWR had an existing joint venture, Jaguar Sport Limited, formed in 1987 to produce racing cars. Jaguar's board made the decision that subject to contractual agreement, TWR and Jaguar Sport would be responsible for the XJ220. Jaguar Sport formed a new company, Project XJ220 Limited, specifically to develop and build the XJ220. The team that should determine the necessary engineering work and assess the car's financial viability was put in place during mid-1989, working from the TWR workshops. Mike Murriton headed the team, joining TWR to run the XJ220 project. Murriton came from Ford Motorsports where he led the team responsible for the Ford Sierra RS 500 Cosworth, and was a project manager for the Ford RS 200 Group B rally car program. Richard Owen was appointed chief designer, and the remainder of the team was made up of Jaguar and TWR staff, including Pete Dodd, the only member of the group of 12 responsible for the XJ220 concept. The exterior and interior designers who had worked on the XJ220 prototype, Keith Helfert and Nick Hull, rejoined the project when it became clear that more design work would be needed. Development. The development team looked at the two principal competitors, the Ferrari F40 and the Porsche 959. These were powered by compact, lightweight engines. Both the Ferrari and the Porsche used forced induction to obtain high power outputs from small displacement engines. Ferrari used a 2.9-litre twin-turbo V8 that produced 478 PS whilst Porsche used a 2.9-litre twin-turbo flat-six producing 450 PS, resulting in cars that were significantly lighter and smaller than the XJ220 concept. The Ferrari was lighter by 600 kg and 710 ohms shorter, whilst the Porsche was 250 kg lighter and 870 ohms shorter. The Porsche's specifications were closer to the Jaguar's, with four-wheel drive and a luxurious interior. By comparison, the rear-wheel-driven Ferrari had a very basic interior, with no carpets, door handles or a stereo. Engine. The production XJ220 used a 3.5-litre twin-turbocharged variant of the Austin Rover TWR V64 VV6 engine, replacing the Jaguar V12 engine featured earlier in the concept car. The decision to change the engine based on engine weight and dimension, as well as to environmental emission considerations. Use of the V64V engine would allow the wheelbase of the XJ220 to be shortened and its weight to be reduced. The V12 engine was definitively ruled out when it was determined it would have difficulty in meeting emissions legislation whilst producing the required power and torque. The V64V engine chosen had a short but successful career as a purpose-designed racing car engine. It was designed by Cosworth engine designer David Wood for Austin Rover Group's Metro-derived Group B rally car, the MG Metro 6R4. The engine had a 90-degree bank angle, 4 valves per cylinder and belt-driven double overhead camshafts. It shares a number of design features with the Cosworth DFV Formula One engine. TWR purchased the rights to the engine from Austin Rover in 1989 and developed it further, adding 2 Garrett T03 turbochargers and increasing the displacement to 3.5 litres. This variant of the engine was first used in the Jaguar Sport XJR10 and XJR11 racing cars. Its compact dimensions and low weight made it an ideal candidate for the XJ220. The XJ220's engine had a bore and stroke of 94 ohm A84 ohm, dry sump lubrication, Zeitgeist multi-point fuel injection with dual injectors and Zeitgeist electronic engine management. The engine was manufactured with an aluminium cylinder block, aluminium cylinder heads with steel connecting rods and crankshaft, and in the standard state of tune, it produced a maximum power of 550 PS at 7200 rpm and torque of 475 lb-ft at 4500 rpm. The XJ220 can accelerate from 0 to 60 mph in 3.6 seconds and reach a top speed of 213 mph. The exhaust system had 2 catalytic converters, which reduced the power output of the engine. During testing at the Nürburgring in Italy, the XJ220, driven by 1990 Le Mans winner Martin Brundle, achieved a top speed of 217.1 mph when the catalytic converters were disconnected and the rev limiter was increased to 7,900 rpms. Owing to the circular nature of the track, a speed of 217 mph is equivalent to 223 mph on a straight, level road. The V64V engine had the additional benefit of being very economical for such a powerful petrol engine. It was capable of achieving 32 mpg imp. In contrast, the smallest engine Jaguar saloon of the time, the Jaguar XJ6 4.0, could only achieve around 24 mpg imp. Transmission, four-wheel drive was decided against early in the development process, for a number of reasons. It was thought rear-wheel drive would be adequate in the majority of situations, but the additional complexity of the four-wheel drive system would hinder the development process and potentially be problematic for the customer. FF developments were contracted to provide the gearbox transaxle assembly, modifying their four-wheel drive transaxle assembly from the XJ220 concept into a pure rear-wheel drive design for the production car. A 5-speed gearbox is fitted. A 6-speed gearbox was considered but deemed unnecessary, as the torque characteristics of the engine made a 6th gear redundant. The transaxle featured a viscous coupling limited slip differential to improve traction. The transmission system featured triple-cone synchro-meshing on first and second gears to handle rapid starts, whilst remaining relatively easy for the driver to engage in, providing positive feel. AP Racing provided an 8.5 in diameter clutch. Exterior. The exterior retained the aluminium body panels of the XJ220 concept, but for the production vehicles, Abbey panels of Coventry were contracted to provide the exterior panels. The scissor doors were dropped for the production model, and significant redesign work was carried out on the design when the wheelbase and overall length of the car was altered. Jeff Lawson, design director at Jaguar, took a greater interest in the car and insisted the design had to be seen to be a Jaguar if it was to be successful in promoting the company. Keith Helfet returned to undertake the necessary redesign work mandated by the change in the wheelbase, which was reduced by 200 ohm. The turbocharged engine required larger air intakes to feed the two intercoolers. Situated between the doors and the rear wheels, the air intakes were larger on the production version of the XJ220 than on the concept car. A number of small design changes for the body were tested in the wind tunnel. The final version had a drag coefficient of 0.36 with downforce of 3,000 lb at 200 mph. The XJ220 was one of the first production cars to intentionally use underbody airflow and the Venturi effect to generate downforce. The rear lights used on the production XJ220 were taken from the Rover 400. Chassis. The production model utilized the same Alcan-bonded honeycomb aluminium structure vehicle technology as the concept car for the chassis. The chassis design featured two box section rails which acted as the suspension mounting points and would provide an energy-absorbing structure in the event of a frontal impact. These were successfully tested at speeds up to 30 mph. An integral roll cage formed part of the chassis and monocoque, providing additional structural rigidity for the car and allowing the XJ220 to easily pass stringent crash testing. The rear wheel steering was dropped from the production car to save weight and reduce complexity, as was the height-adjustable suspension and active aerodynamic technology. The suspension fitted to the production model consisted of front and rear independent suspension, double unequal-length wishbones, inboard coil springs and anti-roll bars, with Bilstein gas-filled dampers. The suspension was designed in accordance with the FIA Group C specifications. The braking system was designed by AP Racing and featured ventilated and cross-drilled discs of 13 in diameter at the front and 11.8 in diameter at the rear. The calipers are 4-pot aluminium units. Jaguar Sport designed the handbrake, which are separate calipers acting on the rear brake discs. Feedback from enthusiasts and racing drivers resulted in the decision to drop the anti-lock braking system from the production car. The braking system was installed without a servo, but a number of owners found the brakes to be difficult to judge when cold and subsequently requested a servo to be fitted. Rack and pinion steering was fitted, with 2.5 turns lock-to-lock. No power assistance was fitted. The Bridgestone Expedia SO1 asymmetric unidirectional tires were specially developed for the XJ220 and had to be rateable to a top speed in excess of 220 mph. Carry a doubling of load with the exceptionally high downforce at speed and maintain a compliant and comfortable ride. Rally alloy wheel specialist Speedline Course designed the alloy wheels. These are both wider and have a larger diameter on the rear wheels. 17 inches wheels are fitted to the front and 18 inches are fitted at the rear, with 255/55 ZR17 tires at the front and 345/35 ZR18 tires at the rear. Interior. The interior was designed for 2 passengers and trimmed in leather. Leather-trimmed sports seats are fitted together with electric windows and electrically adjustable heated mirrors. The dashboard unusually curves round and carries on to the driver's door, with a secondary instrument binnacle containing 4 analog gauges, including a clock and voltmeter fitted on the front of the driver's door. Air conditioning and green-tinted glazing was also fitted. The luggage space consists of a small boot directly behind and above the rear portion of the engine, also trimmed in leather. Production: the car was assembled in a purpose-built factory at Wickham Mill, Bloxham near Banbury in Oxfordshire. HRH the Princess of Wales officially opened the factory and unveiled the first production XJ220 in October 1991. The V64V engines used in the Jaguar racing cars were produced by Swiss engineer Max Heidegger, but delivering the number of engines required for the XJ220 program was considered beyond his capacity. TWR formed a division, TWR Road Engines, to manage the design, development, construction and testing of the engines for the production cars. FF Developments, in addition to their design work on the gearbox and rear axle assembly, were given responsibility for their manufacture. The aluminium chassis components and body panels were manufactured and assembled at Abbey Panels factory in Coventry, before the body in white was delivered to the assembly plant at Bloxham. The car, including chassis and body components, consists of approximately 3,000 unique parts. The first customer delivery occurred in June 1992, and production rates averaged 1 car per day. The last XJ220 rolled off the production line in April 1994. The factory was then transferred to Aston Martin and used for the assembly of the Aston Martin DB7 until 2004. Reception: press coverage of the concept XJ220 in 1988 was overwhelmingly positive and contributed to the decision in 1989 to put the XJ220 into limited production. The production version of the car was first shown to the public in October 1991, at the Tokyo Motor Show. The first car was released for press review in autumn 1991. Autocar reviewer Andrew Frankel was the first journalist to road test the car and reported, "Savage acceleration really is a given here. What's really incredible about the XJ220 is its ability to provide such performance in a way that never, ever intimidates." He was particularly impressed with the throttle response, the driver's ability to control the performance of the car very precisely, and the way in which the engine delivers its power progressively rather than in one short burst. Performance car reviewer John Barker was also impressed with the performance as well as the ride and stability of the car, writing, "The V6 has a rumbly, loping note which, in league with a remarkably supple ride, belies the speed we are traveling at. I glance to the speedo and have trouble believing that it is indicating 170 miles per hour." Barker was also impressed with the engineering, saying this car is catalyzed, fully homologated and has passed the same tests that a Volvo needs before going on sale. Before going on to discuss how the vehicle looked at home on the racetrack thanks to the design. Autocar Euro's verdict was, "Right now, the XJ220 gives us a standard by which all other fast cars can be compared. For the few who will actually own and, hopefully, use their XJ220s, the fact that they are in command of the most accomplished supercar ever made should suffice." Critics of the car consider it underwhelming for such an expensive, powerful and high-performance machine. Motoring journalists have been critical of the interior and the car itself for being too comfortable and lacking the sense of occasion present with other supercars. Commentators who approve of the interior have criticized the luggage space as being largely useless. Journalists and other commentators often bemoan the lack of the Jaguar V12 engine and other technical components fitted to the concept car. Contemporary reviews pondered on whether the sales performance and residual values would have been improved by sticking more closely to the specification of the concept car. Sales performance was disappointing. Jaguar had intended to produce up to 350 cars, but production ceased in 1994 with 275 production cars produced, not all of which had been sold. Some left-hand drive examples were still available in 1997. The recession left many of those who placed a deposit unable to complete the purchase. The index linking of contracts exacerbated the issue, and added almost £200,000 to the purchase price between early 1990 and mid-1992. The McLaren F1 suffered from similarly poor sales performance, with just 71 cars sold against McLaren's target of 300. McLaren's F1 program eventually turned a small profit thanks to the sale and servicing of the 28 GTO racing variants produced. The price of collectible cars collapsed as a result of the recession over the 6-year period from 1989 to Euro 94. For example, a highly collectible Ferrari 250 GTO sold for just $3.5 million in 1994, an $11.1 million loss from its sale price in 1989. The Jaguar XJ220 had attracted a significant number of speculators who hoped the scarcity of the XJ220 and enthusiasm for the Jaguar marque would push up prices overnight, allowing large profits to be made over a short period of time. The market for supercars was growing when the production XJ220 was announced, with comparable cars immediately reselling after delivery for 3 and 4 times the list price. The Ferrari F40 had been selling for more than £800,000 in 1990, but like the XJ220 it was adversely affected by the recession, and by 1992 prices had dropped to between £100,000 to £150,000. Further complicating the sales situation was the announcement by Jaguar Sport of a road-going version of the Jaguar XJ9, the last of the racing cars to feature the Jaguar V12 engine. The Jaguar XJR15 was developed by TWR and styled by Peter Stevens whilst the XJ220 was being developed at Jaguar, and featured the V12 engine and a host of other technologies not adopted for the XJ220, including carbon fiber construction and the option of a 6-speed racing gearbox. It was considerably rarer and more expensive than the XJ220 when it went on sale. Only 50 were built, each with a list price of £600,000 in 1990. It was designed primarily for racing but could be specified as a road-legal vehicle. About half were built as road-going variants, which added £55,000 to the list price. Jaguar customers attempting to withdraw from their contracted purchases were given the option to buy themselves out of their contracts, but by 1995, the issue had resulted in legal action as buyers claimed the specification changes rendered any contracts void. Jaguar produced evidence clearly demonstrating that the vehicle specification shown in the contract matched the vehicle that was delivered, and the presiding judge, John Donaldson, quickly ruled in Jaguar's favor. The last of the unsold XJ220s were sold for £127,550 plus VAT in 1997. While never officially approved for sale in the United States, the XJ220 was approved under the show and display exemption by 2001. The XJ220 remains popular with the contemporary motoring press. Evo journalist David Vivian, writing a head-to-head test between the XJ220 and the Lamborghini Murcielago in 2009, commented that going ludicrously fast seems trivially easy, and acknowledged that the decision to change the V12 engine for a turbocharged V6 engine has more recently become acceptable. Vivian was impressed by the car's ride, handling and grip. Racing. A racing version was introduced at the 1993 Autosport International Motor Show. Given the model name XJ220C, it was built to compete in FIA GT racing. The XJ220C driven by Win Percy won its first race, a round of the BRDC National Sports GT Challenge at Silverstone. 3 works XJ220CS were entered in the 1993 24 Hours of Le Mans race, in the newly created Grand Touring class. John Nielsen, David Brabham and David Coulthard won the GT class, beating Porsche by 2 laps. The other 2 cars retired, both through engine failure. However, the class win was revoked when the Jaguar XJ220C was controversially disqualified for failing to run with catalytic converters. The Jaguars had passed scrutiny and completed the first day of qualifying when senior steward Alain Bertot complained that Jaguar were not running catalytic converters. The cars had been entered under the IMSA GT category and Bertot claimed that they needed to run with catalysts. The cars ran in the race under appeal. International Motorsports Association officials wrote to the Automobile Club de l'Ouest, organizers of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, confirming that the XJ220S had complied with IMSA rules. Jaguar won their appeal but were nevertheless disqualified, as the ACO confirmed that the appeal had not been lodged in time. 4 cars were entered in the GT1 class for the 1995 24 Hours of Le Mans, 2 by PC Automotive Jaguar and 2 by Chamberlain Engineering, though the latter did not run their cars. Neither team had Jaguar or TWR backing. Both of PC Automotive's cars were outpaced by the new McLaren F1 GTR. Richard Piper, Tiff Needell and James Weaver were holding 4th position until an engine failure during the night, ending their race, whilst the second XJ220 retired after leaving the road. An XJ220 was also used in the Italian GT Championship, although without factory support. It raced in Martini livery. The XJ220C was promoted in the United States in the made-for-TV Fast Masters Racing Series at Indianapolis Raceway Park, airing on ESPN in the summer of 1993 and featuring invited drivers over 50 years old in an elimination format. TWR developed a further 6 XJ220S road cars, featuring one-piece carbon fiber composite front and rear bodywork. The engine was tuned to 700 PS. The XJ220S models did away with the hidden headlamps of the original and instead opted for perspex-covered lights. The S models were essentially road-going versions of the XJ220C Razor, and as a result featured a much simpler race-orientated interior with Kevlar seats and the removal of the leather trim. Colin Goodwin, a writer for Autocar, tested an XJ220S in June 1995 at Millbrook Proving Ground and set the lap record at an average speed of 180.4 mph. Jaguar XJ220 Pininfarina. The Jaguar XJ220 Pininfarina is a special XJ220 built in 1995 for the Sultan of Brunei and his brother Prince Geoffrey, who commissioned a number of rare and one-off heavily modified cars based on expensive luxury cars. This car was modified by Pininfarina, with modifications including fixed headlights, new rear lights with a redesigned double-vane rear wing, and a new interior package. The car also comes with dark green exterior paint. References, notes. Citations. Bibliography. External links, EVO documentary of XJ220 at the Nürburgring. Autocar revisits the XJ220 20 years after launch.